Hello everyone on the internet and thanks for tuning in. I am RyuKiva of RyuKiva Toku.
And welcome to another episode of Toku Bros. I am your co-host, Mike Pinkerton from Irrational International, and this is Sentai Talk.
Grateful Phoenix. So we've got our boy Mike Pinkerton here joining us
How's it going?
for Sentai Talk for the first time. How are you feeling about this one, Mike?
I'm loving it. This season's been really fun because it's like a kind of a throwback, but it also brings a lot of new flavor in.
Okay, so we're going straight into it. So we are talking about Kiramager, specifically episodes 27 to 30. So we are literally just past that halfway mark. Am I right, Mike?
Yeah, it's like a halftime show. This is the halftime show.
This is technically the post halftime show, but we again
Halftime report.
we have got to see like what potential the rest of this series has. I mean, there's been a lot of news, there's been a lot of spoilers going on in regards to how Garza's going to be like flipping the script, and but yet we still don't know anything about our main villain Yodonna. Well, I think it was Yodon or Yodon of Yodonheim. Am I correct on this one? I'm asking a new boy to correct me on this,
Yeah.
but still. Right.
Don't quote me.
No, don't worry, we won't quote you. I mean, it's all good. But I'll say, in terms of Sentai news, again, we've had a few spoilers. We know the actress behind Yodonna is releasing a photo book. Have you seen the scans of this?
I haven't seen anything yet. Is this a
It's
gravure photo book or
it
is it?
it kind of is and it kind of isn't me because when you
Mhm.
look at because like if we're going really into the history of sort of Sentai actresses or Sentai female villains. They tend to have like this very risque background of releasing photo books and sort of art that they get into. Now, I don't know. In recent years, it tends to be just a sort of kawaii vibe, and it tends to be more the Sentai heroines that have been doing it in the last 10 years.
Mhm.
But obviously, Yodonna, she's come from the Garrow universe, as I'm always saying, and she was amazing in Garrow. And she's got her Yodonna role really nailed down. And if anything, like where people were like really paying attention to Kiramager being from Kamen Rider Ghost, and then
Mhm.
Senna obviously being like this new actress, I do genuinely believe that Yodonna, the actress behind Yodonna, has completely stolen the limelight, and everyone's talking about her constantly. But ironically, no one's really mentioning about her history or her acting career. And she recently turned 25, so
Okay.
like they did like a little celebration for her. But I think it's very much a promotional thing where right about now they are releasing her photo book, which again isn't on par with the female Sentai villains of the 90s, but it is quite risque considering we're now in
Mhm.
2020 and everyone's all about
Yeah.
women shouldn't have to flaunt themselves to promote themselves
Well, they don't
kind of
have to,
thing.
but I mean, at the same time, like I think it's a situation of if you want to flaunt yourself. I mean, there's going to be someone out there who will subscribe to
I
you.
don't think it's a question of wanting to flaunt yourself.
Yeah.
It's again, it's kind of they say sex sells and that, which people
Mhm.
can people can have whatever view they want on that. But again, we just haven't seen that sort of thing from a Sentai. I mean, we've barely had any female Sentai villains for a while, let alone one of this nature, one of this sass. And then she's releasing a photo
Absolutely.
book of, again, it's kind of borderline, but not quite how the ones of the 90s used to do. Let's move on to talking about episodes 27 to 30.
Okay.
So over these four episodes, not too much went on, and that's just my opinion.
Um,
But
I have
throwing
thought.
but throwing you in at the deep end so you can talk about
No,
this.
it's all good.
Talk us
Um,
through episode 27.
sure. I just want to say first off, I did kind of feel a bit of a like shift from a lot of the Showa kind of homage in the earlier episodes to
Okay.
more of like a Heisei era kind of homage.
Okay.
I mean, we literally have a ranger wearing goggles around his head like Digimon style. I mean,
Yeah, all right.
that's
We have
extremely
not.
late 90s.
Okay.
Pop quiz, hotshot. There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up. What do you do? What do you do?
So,
Well, in Senna's
that,
case, she keeps running. Am I
right.
correct?
Mhm.
She absolutely keeps running. I mean, like, when it
Hmm.
comes to the Monster of the Week in episode 27, I do feel that they did kind of do, like, a nice original monster, Monster of the Week here.
Mhm.
I mean, like, kind of going off your vibe of, like, where they're going less to show and more on Heisei. The thing about Kiramager is, and we've said this over the last few podcasts, is that they have done a lot of Easter eggs in Kiramager. Bearing in mind that this isn't an anniversary series, and I've said that before as well. Bearing in mind that this isn't an anniversary series, they have done hell a lot of Easter eggs. Now, the biggest Easter egg does come from Senna, in the fact that she's got the Geki Ranger logo on her. So, as fun as it has been seeing the Geki Ranger logo on Senna's running gear, I personally didn't feel specifically why they did such a strong Geki Ranger tie at this level when they've had all these other Easter eggs. And yet, for some reason, and this includes Yodonna's uniform having like a recolored version of Navi the bird from Gokaiger on her shoulders. So they have got these Heisei Sentai Easter eggs in it. But that's gone across the board, and they went really heavy on this episode because I spotted Navi from the off, right? So I am finding it amusing, however, like they use the same Monster of the Week over and over again just to save on their budget, as Toei is known to do, right?
But I mean, I think they've done a great job of like, you do need to use a little suspension of disbelief. But I think if you say, you know what, this is what we gave to kids in the 70s, is what we're gonna give to kids in the 2020s.
Yeah, I mean, I will actually agree with you on that one. I mean, but because just kind of get back to my point, like, but pretending each one is a brother or something, like, and they've done this not just a couple of times in Kiramager already. I mean, like in the sister show Kamen Rider, they've been doing that a lot for Saber. Bearing in mind, we're in this COVID era and budget is a real tight one. But thing is, with Toei's tokusatsu, they are always on a ridiculous budget where they are recycling like this. But I'll say, in this case, like the super glue Monster of the Week as well, that is almost a bit of a recycled job. I kind of feel that
was color swapped. They just literally changed it.
So in this case, like the super glue Monster of the Week, again, it's not just a recycled monster from like several episodes ago, but it's also recycling the theme as well. But at least that whole speed reference is actually again, it's quite amusing for those that get it. But again, bearing in mind that this is a show aimed at young kids, they might not necessarily get it, but any adult that might happen upon it, i.e. us nerds of the senior tokusatsu era, we will spot that kind of thing, right? Say that again.
Is Speed like a popular movie in Japan, or even is Keanu
you'd have to ask them. But bearing in mind, even in the West, Speed is also a very old film. So I mean, the thing is, I don't know if Speed's even that well known or popular in Japan. I mean, Keanu Reeves is massive star worldwide anyway. But bearing in mind, we are talking about a really old film here, even by Western standards. It will be surprising if anyone else gets that theme. So again, when they're recycling certain themes, they're going to get away with doing that because, again, kids won't know what it's, even connected to. Am I right?
I mean, even then, though, it's kind of like Speed was just Die Hard on a bus. You know what I'm talking about? Now.
Yeah, I mean, of course, when you're referring to those old action films, I mean, to be fair, Kiramager does have its good share of action, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how do you, bear in mind you're jumping on this channel now, how do you feel about the action in Kiramager so far, 27 episodes in?
I think sometimes it does feel a little more over the top, a little more, I guess, kind of like a strange kind of throwback to some other stuff.
Any examples?
This is going to sound a little, I can't spoil it, but rhythmic gymnastics, how a lot of the older teams would use a lot more like gymnastics moves.
Okay.
Are you seeing a little more of that on the team now? Or?
I will actually agree with you. When they do their roll call, they normally do like in Sentai of Past, it's normally they do a quick flash pose and then you got the pyrotechnics go off in the background. In this one, I mean, of course, like pyrotechnics isn't used so much these days, but you look at the way that they make the Kirama Kana in their sparkly background. that, I can agree with you that definitely has like that sort of gymnastics vibe.
Ever seen some of the old like images? They were trying to have a crossover between the rhythmic gymnastics team. It's on Vulcan. I don't want to say the gymnastics team now.
I know. I think it
They
must
do
have
like
been. I think it must have been Mask Man or something that had like one of its members with like the ribbons and stuff, like as a gymnast. I mean, like to get back to episode 27 though, like the premise. Like, I will say that the resolve of specifically episode 27 and stuff did feel a bit random, and frankly, they could have done better. So, yeah, I'm going on to talking about sort of story structure here. Like, I'll seem that Gaza does seem to be Yodonna's pawn without any real story to that, bearing in mind their sort of relationship kind of took a sudden switch at the end. And, just to end this episode as well, I mean, we've talked a lot about sort of Senna. At the end of episode 27, we do get the character song from Senna. And I'll be honest, it sounded a bit like generic pop and it wasn't very original. I mean, did you have any thoughts on Senna's song or anything about her character at all?
I think it definitely gives me like a Sailor Moon kind of feel, especially like that '90s Sailor Moon sort of like.
I can agree with that. Okay.
I feel like it's like a show about a young like teenage superhero with like a really forced romance.
Fair enough. Okay. I mean,
definitely like that Sailor Moon kind of magical girl vibe to it.
Sure. I mean, did you have any? I mean, before we start talking about episode 8, did you have any thoughts on Senna's character at all?
I think that I do love the like feeling where in Kiramager again, it is a throwback season in a lot of ways. Do you feel like maybe instead of some stock footage of Geki Ranger, if we just got a little bit of stock footage of Keanu Reeves, episode 27 would make you happier?
They could easily make that into a meme. That's all I've got to say on that. And no one's done it. Bearing in mind this is like several weeks ago. I'm surprised no one... I mean, maybe someone somewhere did pick up on that, but again, that would be more of a meme thing, really. So moving on to episode 28. So I'm going to start this one. So the episode had a bit of a bizarre start. But even the reveal of the Monster of the Week, bearing in mind it was another cliche camouflage episode, I actually did feel it looked amazing. I mean, it still had this continuation of the Ultraman vibe that I've talked about previously, but the headpiece has to come straight off of Evolto from Kamen Rider Build or something else like Gundam or Evangelion inspired. I mean, the episode seems... I mean, do you have any thoughts on this Monster of the Week at least?
I thought it was real bizarre, but it was a, like interesting concept. I really liked.
I mean, the episode does seem to be a long lineup for several weeks. Has had like a long lineup for several weeks about the Gold Mecha connected to Oridin, and yet the backstory for Embark as the mentor for Prince Oridin, just to me, it seemed a little bit haphazard and shoehorned in, which is a complaint I've made for Kiramager in a couple of episodes already. However, I'll say the two main takeaways from this episode were how it was a very blue-centric episode, and the scenes on the stone shore, that is a location often used in Toku as the place Kirima Blue does an amazing routine of acting. But the second thing being is that instead of an invisible Monster of the Week, is that they did this twist that I already mentioned, that the monster somehow had the whole environment projected onto it, being somewhat original. I mean, did you have any thoughts on that?
I think that it was way more of an original kind of execution of, the camouflage monster kind of cliche. I mean, yeah, that's kind of what Kiramager does. They say, hey, let's take that cliche and
twist it. They absolutely do. Yeah. So the twist of the monster having the environment projected onto it was somewhat original, but the way they went about it did seem a lot long-winded, while they played all these alternative scenes from the Embark storyline. I mean, the single fight scene that they had, like, again, I don't know if you remember this, there was like one fight scene where they broke into like a sort of warehouse. It was pretty good, and there was like a lot of CGI going on, but still they could have expanded on that so much more. And I'll say, and again, like, maybe you don't remember the end theme, but the end track to this one was at least a decent classic J-pop style song done by, if I remember correctly, Kirima Blue. So what are your thoughts on episode 28 overall?
I felt it might have been a little more overshadowed by episode 29. I think the projection idea, it's It's kind of one of those characters that I think will be like one where if you try to explain it to someone, it kind of brings them into the series a little bit.
So episode 29, I actually felt that this actually does count as a key episode, but ironically I felt it was really subtle in the way that they presented it. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the monster shrunk, like, so the monster from episode 28 that we were talking about with the big head and that, I'm pretty sure it shrunk in size in episode 29. But yeah, especially in comparison to the buildings, but then the Ranger's passage to the alternate world had me actually realizing that Crystalia has a very familiar vein with Asgard from Marvel's Thor.
Oh, no.
I mean, are you familiar with the Marvel universe at all?
Mm.
I was looking at Crystalia all this time. I'm like, I don't know why this is so familiar, and then this particular episode, I'm like, Asgard. So this is exactly where I come to the realization that Crystalia is basically Asgard, especially when you look at the Gaza storyline, being sort of very similar to Loki. I mean, normally, this is kind of a thing that, Marvel and Toei kind of are so parallel in so many ways, and this is definitely one of them.
I do kind of like the alternate world idea, but it's kind of one of those things where I usually kind of prefer more sci-fi Sentai versus high fantasy Sentai.
I will actually agree with you. I mean, when it comes to my list of favourite Sentai, I mean, bearing in mind, like, I do have, like, Q Ranger at the top of there. I have Go Busters at the top there. But, and even Time Rangers on my top, right? So I'll actually agree with you, but then where I'm vaguely familiar with like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I will say that it took me this long to make that connection between Crystalia and Asgard. So like moving on still, like again, like because this whole not quite moving on, but this whole alt world thing does smack of the Power Rangers universe, like in Dino Charge, where they have the alt universe for the dinosaurs. So obviously this alt world that Oridin has created is just basically everyone getting along with these mixes of races, which we do see in things like Deca Ranger, SPD, and even more recently Zyuohger. But I was unconvinced by them trying to pass off Tokyo as an alternative world, because they've got their famous Ferris wheel in the background. I'm just like, that's just Tokyo.
Yeah.
So going into the theme of them going in, so the team going into the doors and being confronted by their darker selves is definitely a cliche that we've seen before. And fighting the darker versions of themselves, and again, I can complain about it being cliche, but then the old trope was barely in it for like 5 minutes before Juru basically solved the whole episode, right?
Kiramager is at the point where they're like, we need to take every single Sentai cliche there is and put it somewhere. We will find a place to just kind of shove it in there. And
absolutely.
I think in a lot of ways, are you feeling a lot of Car Ranger? I know that's probably been compared a lot.
Car Ranger. I'm just trying to think. No, I mean, I will say, like, for my opinion of Car Ranger is that they felt like they were giving up on the series. Like, the writing was very lackluster, and the humor was very deadpan. Whereas at least with Kiramager, for all its flaws and faults, I actually do feel that the writers genuinely care about the show and they are genuinely putting effort in. And that's actually a genuine compliment for Kiramager, even if it isn't the most popular season. Bearing in mind, we are way past that halfway mark by episode 29.
I love Car Ranger. I think the tongue-in-cheek of Car Ranger makes it...
Absolutely, I absolutely love Car... again, I absolutely love Car Ranger for somewhat different reasons, admittedly. I'll still say, like, the one thing we did get from this episode is the debut of the new mecha combo Grateful Phoenix. I kind of like the twist and the happy ending, yet the ending theme by Kiramager I actually felt would have been better if she did the song she was singing as Dark Kiramager, and that's just my opinion of that. The latter half of the episode.
Gonna be honest, I'm not as big on the mecha this season. I feel like I normally would be like, vehicles that combine that are very like strangely proportioned. I would love to be all about it. And especially, I don't want to, go too much into spoilers. As things get put together down the line, I'm not sure how much I enjoyed the mecha from this season.
So, going into episode 30, I did particularly feel that this was a bizarre episode, starting off with describing the monster of the week. I mean, they've done mannequin episodes before, but I'm sure there was something like very unique about the look and the method of this particular monster of the week. I mean, it was also like this episode was trying to be a key plot episode without actually being a key plot episode on this one, or being actually key to the plot. I mean, I guess for once the internet and the groups that I've been following actually deceived me on several fronts. I mean, we all love Murio and the fact that he was Pikotaro and that, and there were so many screen caps released of Kirima Gold, but still, like, what doesn't turn out to be true, it still gives you a real sense of what really it could have been. I picked off a lot of like details, like, I mean, again, like, I absolutely loved the whole scarf motif that he had going on, and then his actual helmet was actually striped with both gold and silver, which I thought was actually a nice touch, and they definitely should do that in a future Sentai without a shadow of a doubt. It was really bizarre that in the middle of all this action, they basically took 5 to 10 minutes to disclose the full backstory between Oridin and Murio.
I think more Murio, I've had a lot of great thoughts about. I would be all for if he was actually going to be a member of the team. I think it would be kind of cool also to have someone who's not necessarily a veteran Sentai member, but
someone
who's a ranger that's a bit on the older side.
I mean, I think like when it comes to like the whole premise of this episode, like it kind of gives a lot more of a morale boost to people who are supporting actors, supporting characters, or people who are just like a general support for people in everyday life. So I do actually feel that the actual morale of the episode was actually very contingent. It was quite poignant that they do say things like, oh, you don't necessarily have to be part of the main team and the one that's like the hero, gets all the hero worship. But, the fact that, Murio was very revered by King Oridin, and the fact that he will happily support the 6 Kiramagers, it's actually, and again, I'll even say it's even tribute to the actor behind Murio, who everyone knows is Pikotaro, and everyone's like picking off all these like Pikotaro references from this episode. I didn't necessarily see them, but just seeing his character, his actor portray this role for 30 episodes thus far is something that I've actually come to appreciate anyway, even before this episode. But I will say bearing in mind we know him for PAAP, that the actual song that they ended with this episode sounded goddamn awful, and that's just my opinion.
So actually, I think Murio might be one of my more favorite characters.
Sure.
I think I don't like the mecha in this season as much.
Okay.
But if you like to imagine that Hakata Minami Murio is like a mecha made out of all the characters from Silicon Valley on HBO, just shoved together. And that's kind of what it reminds me of a little bit. You know what I mean?
I'll be honest, I don't, but that's quite. I mean, again,
okay.
because when it comes to sort of like the way that Sentai takes inspiration from the West, there's just so many Easter eggs in that on itself, and when I spot British references, I am hot on it, but it does become obscure when because Japan has pretty much its own culture onto itself. I mean, it even separates itself from the rest of Asia in many retrospects. So when it does pick up on Western references, it is normally quite cool.
So I do actually really like the idea of, I mean, again, this is just really, I would love to see more of, even as like extra rangers, just bring on more older comedians who can take on 6 ranger roles. When
it comes to the Power Rangers universe, we tend to see in the casting calls that they have been asking for older characters to portray the comedy roles. And the fact that and again, so I'm sort of digressing a little bit, but even the way that they've got like a much older Red Ranger, it's going to be Dino Fury is going to be a very interesting season to watch. I mean, when it comes to Japan, they had, I mean, most of their senior most of their senior comedians will normally appear in things like Sentai and Rider in cameo roles. Like they do, like
Yeah.
in Japan, it's very popular to have like comedy duos. And
Mm,
there
yeah.
are so many different comedy duos that have appeared in both Sentai and Rider. I mean, the fact that they got Pikotaro to play Murio, like the mentor to our heroes, is actually quite a big score. Like, I don't think people appreciate that enough. And, like, I don't know, like, because the actor, apart from Pen Pineapple Apple Pen, he has such a history behind him. And then he's done this, and then he's come on to Sentai. It's amazing. But then, even like you look at the Rider universe again, so many comedy duos have appeared in Rider, and then they did like a comedy skit called Kamen Rider G, which I don't know if you've seen, but it's absolutely insane.
Kamen Rider G, that's the wine one, right?
Yeah, they kind of made it canon in one of the movies, which is a bit insane. But still, like I think it was in Geo they made him canon.
Oh, wow.
But
I want to say he was in Kamen Rider Tyson, but
I don't think it was in Tyson. I think it was specifically in Geo, but still, that's a Rider topic. But still, like it will be interesting to see. Because again, like where Sentai's become so soft, much softer in recent years, it'll be interesting to see if they do pick up on a comedy theme.
I mean, speaking of, we were saying like awesome free agents for this halftime. I would love to see Ike Nawala come back if they're gonna have more, veterans come back, more references to older things.
I mean, the problem with a character like Nawala, as in AKA Commander Hilltop, because he's like so well recognized anyway, you wouldn't be able to put him in an original role. I mean, when it comes to like other actors in the industry, I mean that's exactly what professionals at Toei and their agents will do. Like, because normally they'll go for like the younger, they'll normally go for the younger actors and the ones who are like in groups. So like even in Kamen Rider, the guy who's the mystery actor in Saber, all the way down to characters like Lupin Red, they were all part of like tropes and groups that they are easily sourced. Whereas comedians, they tend to be more circuit based. So that tends to be harder work for such agents. But bringing in comedians, I mean, again, like going off the whole like Power Ranger vibe, again, like bringing in actors to be comedians can be very hit and miss in my opinion, and that's exactly where I'm going to leave it. So thank you all for tuning in and watching us reviewing Kiramager episodes 27 to 30. You can find us all on the social medias as per, starting off with my boy Mike Pinkerton at Irrational International. You can find him on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat if you can be bothered. Then there's ourselves, the Toku Bros. You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, as well as this very YouTube channel, and Twitter at Toku Bros 71. And then finally myself, RyuKiva of RyuKiva Toku. Again, my Toku unboxing series, it's literally going to kick off Series 3 any day now. But in the meantime, you're more than welcome to hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, as well as my Patreon and neglected WordPress site, ryukivatoku.wordpress.com. So thank you all very much for tuning in. I hope to see you all again next time. And as always, you and my new brother, fish through the cam.
Thanks.